Welcome back. It is always a good day when I step out on my studio and give thanks. And I have an opportunity to speak to wonderful people about their journey on the planet. My guest is super special and just an amazing woman, and you're going to be so enthralled with her story. But first, just a few things I want to announce. Please, by all means, if you would do me a favor and subscribe to the podcast, you can hear it all over wherever you get your favorite podcast. But it really does help me if you subscribe. And then each time a new show drops in, you'll get notified and you won't have to go searching for it. So thank you to everybody so far. I'm getting great feedback on the show. And of course, we're going in our 4th year. You know, the next room to me where death is dinner conversation. So thank you, thank you, thank you. As far as the book goes, I love and I'm so like grateful to everyone that has purchased it. If you do want an autograph copy, you can do so through my website at janeasherrainey.com. And I mail those out personally. I sign each one. My mother, I've got her signature and a stamp. She signs each one as well. So if you do want a book, by all means, reach out. And the last announcement I just wanted to make is Gathering at the Doorway, which is the anthology of signs, visits, and messages from the afterlife. I donated a chapter to this book, as well as 39 other writers from across the universe. And all the proceeds go to benefit wonderful nonprofits like Helping Parents Heal, also Forever Family. And anytime any of us do a speaking engagement, we can sell this book and then turn around and give the proceeds to the nonprofit that is having us do a speaking engagement, which is a great lead in to my guest today. My guest is Bartolome, last name Bartolome, Barbara. She is from IANDS, Santa Barbara. And she is just a beautiful, beautiful person. I met Barbara through another mutual friend that said, you should have her on your show because she's had an NDE. And I'm like, I didn't know a lot about near-death experiences. And now I'm fully immersed. So welcome to the show, Barbara. It's so good to have you.
Thank you, Jane, and hello to your audience. I'm happy to be here.
So Barbara, I know that you've told me the story, but for those that are just tuning in or just finding the podcast, you're from Santa Barbara. You had something happen to you that was unbelievable, and you got through it, came through it, and you have tales to tell about this experience.
Life-changing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tell me about your life-changing experience with your NDE.
Well, I was 31 years old. I had a little 5-month-old baby daughter and an 8-year-old son, and I had a disc problem in my back, and I'd blown a disc. And it was because of a person I was married to at the time, and he was abusive, and so he had actually caused the problem. And so I went to the hospital to have surgery on it, and prior to the surgery they wanted to do a particular test to see if the disc, when it blew, if any fragments had chipped my spinal cord, because I wasn't able to walk and I was just 31 at the time. And so as the test was being done, unfortunately, one of the technicians, the men that were standing next to the table that I was laying on after they had injected iodine dye into my spinal cord and were going to have the x-ray, it's called a myelogram, and the x-ray would then show whether the disc had perpetrated the spinal cord. He pressed the wrong button on the table I was laying on. Instead of tipping the table with my head being raised up so that I would run down my spine, he was lowering my head and he didn't notice it, and no one in the room noticed it. So the dye went into my brain and changed what another neurosurgeon told me later on was it changed the pressure in my brain. And I started hyperventilating. My eyes were rolling to the back of my head, and they finally noticed that. And I was very panicked in my body. I was scared and I didn't know what was going on. And right before I actually died, the x-ray tech noticed that I was hyperventilating and leaned over my body, looked at my face, and then he leaned back to see where his thumb was on the machine to make the machine move. And that's when he made this horrified look. And right at that point, then I left my body, and was up on the ceiling, and it was absolutely incredible, the difference between being in my body and being panicked, and then feeling this complete calm, comfort, feeling like I was wrapped in a beautiful blanket of love and acceptance. I didn't think anything terrible up on the ceiling. I was fine. And I looked down and I watched as they resuscitated me. Took about 8 to 10 minutes for them to do that. And while I was up there on the ceiling, there was a beautiful being that was ended up talking to me. But at the start, I was just talking to him, saying how much I wanted to go back to my life, to my children, to protect them and to help raise them, to make them be good people in the world. And so finally, the end of the situation was that they decided to do a precardial thump, which is a blow to my chest because they couldn't get the defib unit in time. And when they did the first blow to my chest, the being that was up there on the ceiling next to me finally spoke to me. And I had been, calmly asking to go back. And he said, if you go back, you'll still be in your marriage. What will you do? And showed me all of these clips, little short flashes of incidents that had happened over the 7 years that I'd been married. And it was something that, reminded me of what I was living with. And then I was given the chance to think about the things that I'd done to try to help my husband change and to modify his behavior and to help him out of his anger issues. And nothing had ever worked. And so after I evaluated all the things that I had done, then I said to the being, if you let me go back, I promise you I'll get strong enough to leave him. And the second I said the word him, the doctor did a second precardial thump on my chest. It was probably just seconds later after the first one, but up on the ceiling, time didn't seem like the same as down here. It seemed like I was up there 20 minutes or so. Um, so at the second blow to my chest, it restarted my heart, and I simply shut my eyes up above and was back in my body. And I said to the neurosurgeon and the orthopedic surgeon and the two x-ray techs and the nurse and the lady who'd brought in the oxygen card and the man who brought in the heart monitor, what just happened? And they told me, no, don't talk, we need to stabilize you. And then 20 minutes later, when they took the oxygen mask off, I said, what just happened? I was up on the ceiling and I could see everything and hear everything. And the neurosurgeon went, oh, brother. And that caused me, I'd never heard of a near-death experience. I'd never heard of anything like that in my life, to completely relate what had just happened over the last 10 minutes. And so they were all freaked out probably, but the neurosurgeon the most, and he stormed out of the room and screamed, I'm not going to listen to this. And so the orthopedic surgeon, he was pretty good, and he took a hold of my hand, and everybody else just stood there with their eyes huge. And he said, how did you feel? And what was it like? And what did you hear? And what did you feel? And, so he kind of went over it with me. But then the hospital itself, I probably alerted everyone that they were not to talk to me about it anymore. So over the 4 days that I was there after the surgery, the next morning, nobody would say anything to me about it. So I didn't even know what it was called. I had no idea it had happened to anybody else. And so for about 12 years, I didn't talk about it. It was just my secret that I kept quietly alive inside my heart.
Oh my goodness. Talk about a crappy bedside manner. I mean, even if he didn't have the capability to understand that life goes on, a lot of people are not, they don't accept that, and that's fine. That's your choice, free will. But even if you don't believe that, just to be that insensitive after you had this absolutely harrowing situation happened to you. I hope he's not practicing medicine anymore. That's just me.
He is, but I did a grand rounds talk at the hospital here in Santa Barbara in front of 60 physicians and major nurses at the hospital. And I talked about my near-death experience in front of those people. And I never name him, and I never, give out his name. I don't want to cause any problems for him, but I'm hoping that, and I've also dropped off, like a bottle of wine with a letter to him about 10 years after it happened, and said, if you ever want to meet for lunch, so far it's been a no.
Yeah. He knows who he is. Yeah. And everybody comes to their understanding about our conscious level. And,
Right.
hopefully we're always evolving while we're here so that we do gain more awareness and more understanding so that when it does come time for us to truly go to the next room, we're okay. We're like plugged back in, like, "Ah, okay. Oh, I remember all
Exactly.
this."
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
Mhm.
This is it's a fascinating story. So, when you finally discuss that, okay, you're open 12 years later, you want to talk about it, how did you come to start the IANDS Santa Barbara organization? Because IANDS is an international association for near death studies. They are all over the world. There's chapters everywhere, and you actually single-handedly started the one in Santa Barbara, California.
Yes.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, what happened was that I ended up a nurse that a friend of mine ended up telling me she was losing her mom. Her mom was dying, and so I ended up feeling like my story could help her. And we were quietly talking, and I told her my story about my near-death experience, which I really didn't share with anybody, even my family. I mean, I just was kept keeping it inside. And she was the one who told me it was called a near death experience. So that really helped me in my life because then I could start researching it. The internet had come up. And so I initially found the Near Death Experience Research Foundation, which is run by Dr. Jeffrey Long and his wife Jody. And they have accumulated thousands and thousands of near death experience stories, and they have done research on them. And so he's a major player in the near death experience world. He's a doctor from Huma, Louisiana. And so I ended up writing up, just briefly writing up my near death experience story and posting it to his website so he could review it. And it took about 2 years, and that was in 2007, I think, that I posted it up there. And in 2009, I got a call from him, and there was a conference that was going to be happening, which was an IANDS conference, International Association for Near Death Studies, down in San Diego, which is only like maybe 4 hours from my home in Santa Barbara. And he said, my wife and I are going to be down there. If you'd like to come down, you'll meet other experiencers. Well, that was the big deal. If I could meet someone else who'd had that happen, that would be awesome. Well, there were 50 experiencers there. I got to meet a ton of people who were really wonderfully amazing and nice. And I really loved the organization. And so 2 years later, I was talking to a friend of mine here in Santa Barbara, and she actually works for the newspaper. And I didn't know that actually. She's really well known in Santa Barbara, and we were having lunch, and I told her my near-death experience story. And she said, "Oh my God, we've got to print this in the newspaper." And I was like, "No, I don't think so. No, no, no." And she said, "Yes, yes, yes." And so she sent a person over to interview me and write the story up. And at the end of the story, at the end of the interview, he said, can you tell me why we're actually doing this article about your near death experience? Why are we doing this?" And I said, you'll have to ask her, my friend, but can I call you back? When are you publishing this? So he told me it was on the following Sunday. So what I did was I called the IANDS organization, and I said, how hard is it to start an IANDS group in my city? I knew there were ones in Seattle, which was started by Kimberly Clark Sharp. That was the very first one. And they branched out to Chicago and Virginia Beach, Virginia, and San Diego, and Los Angeles, and Denver, and all over the U.S. and beyond, out in the world, out in Europe and etc. And so I thought, well, I'll start a group here. So they said, yeah, we'll help you. It's really easy, and you can be the group leader. And so then that was 2011, August of 2011. I had my first IANDS meeting, and about 35 people showed up, and they printed in the newspaper that article about my near-death experience, and they put a little small box at the end of the article that said, if you're interested in near-death experiences, there's going to be a meeting that's going to start on August 11th. And so that's why people were alerted to it. And then it just grew from there to ending up with when Eben Alexander came to speak, Dr. Eben Alexander came to speak in Santa Barbara, we had 900 people at his
Wow.
event. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's been a very, there's a lot of areas nearby us that draw people, Ojai and Ventura and Buellton and Santa Maria. And so people come from lots of different areas to come to Santa Barbara's group. So it's a
Yeah,
good group.
it's a spiritually fit community.
Yeah,
I
it is.
know from living there for 7 years, there's a great vibe, there's
Yeah.
just the smell of eucalyptus and just the feeling and the people and the warmth. And there's just a lot of really cool mystical magic swirling around that beautiful city.
Yeah.
So you run this organization, the Santa Barbara chapter. It's all purely on donations. Am I right? Because
Yes.
it's a nonprofit.
Yes, it
Um,
is. Yeah.
so
You know what, at first when there were just a few people, then I just paid whatever needed to be
right.
paid. And so, yeah. And now after COVID, we've got a diminished number of people coming to the meetings and, whatever, I just pay whatever's not paid. And so for me, it's a work of my heart. I knew that I was supposed to do something with this. I knew there
Right.
was a purpose up on the ceiling at the time when I had my NDE. I just didn't know what it was, but I now realize completely what it is. It's to talk about this subject and to help other people relieve grief and relieve fear of death, and just to be supportive of people who have had the experience. So
Well, I
that's what
love
we
it.
do. Mhm.
I think it's wonderful. And I'm actually speaking at your meeting this
Yes.
Wednesday at 7 o'clock. Um, and I personally have not had a near death experience, but because of the nature of the next room and the book that I've written, you graciously invited me to come and speak.
Yes.
So it's not just near death, it's
Right.
also the experiences surrounding and connecting with those that have moved on or
Yes.
transcended, correct?
Yes, yes, correct. We call it the bigger picture, spiritually transformative experiences, which could be a shared death experience. It could be an out of body experience that someone
Gotcha.
experiences, but it also could be just something that spiritually changes them in their life. And that's, going to transform them. And so we talk about a broad variety of things to try to help people move forward in their life.
I love that. Well, I'm going to bring Gathering at the Doorway with me.
Yay,
And we had a
good.
bunch of these shipped to you
Yay.
because Camille Dan, who is just a lovely human being, she put this entire project together and said, I want to do it so that I can help other people in their grief and through understanding that we do not die. Life goes
Right.
on. We just
Yes.
transform or transcend to a different level, I suppose.
I call it home. I
Home,
always say there's no
right.
heaven and no hell. It's just home. And I always do the O part as a heart because it's just filled with love.
Oh, I
And
love
love
that.
survives our
Mm,
death. Love is truly eternal. Yeah.
mm. Barbara Bartolome is my guest today. She started up the IANDS Santa Barbara organization in 2011. Coming up this Wednesday, September 14th, 2022, I will be the guest speaker and I'm super excited. I'll bring Gathering. We'll sell this book at the event and all the proceeds will turn around and just hand them to you. So
Oh, that's
anyone
sweet.
that's coming to the event, please, please, please bring your cash with you. It would be wonderful to support Barbara and all the loving work that she's doing. And she's doing this out of the goodness of her heart. So it's really nice to give back. I'm also going to take um, proceeds from my book and make a generous donation to you as well.
Oh, thank you
Um,
so much,
and
Jane.
it really depends. Like if one person buys the book, I'll give you $5. I mean,
Oh,
it's just,
yeah.
it's
And
just one of those things, you don't know, but I do
anything
want you to know
helps.
that, yeah, everything helps.
Yep.
And the fact that you have established this wonderful meeting and you continue to bring great people in to speak and allow us to kind of share our stories, it's really powerful. So anybody that's listening today, September 14th, 2022, talk to me about the new location because it used to be at a different location, but this will be the first
Yeah.
one at the
Yeah.
Carpolis Museum.
Yes, the Karpelis family have a manuscript museum in Santa Barbara, and they have, I think, other locations in the United States as well. And the senior Karpelis person who had the family, he collected manuscripts that were historical value and have them displayed in this museum. But upstairs, above the museum area, there's a wonderful meeting room. And we had initially, when we first started our IANDS group in Santa Barbara, we had met there for a few times. And then one of the people who is on my board of directors had been on the chairman of the board of another location. So he'd encouraged me to move over to this other location. But they're having issues right at this point, construction and et cetera. So we have moved back over to the Karpelis Manuscript Library, and it's at 21 West Anapamoo Street in Santa Barbara, and it's right downtown in Santa Barbara, just literally half a block from State Street, our main street. And there's lots of restaurants around so that people can go to dinner before the meeting starts at 7. And it's just a really wonderful group of people that gather to come to these meetings. And you'll find friends, that's for sure.
I love that. And I'm going to be a guest on the K-Tide Morning Show tomorrow morning with Lynn Obashan. She's fabulous. And so Lynn invited me to come on. So we'll talk about the event tomorrow morning and the local TV station. I don't have that exact time set yet, but I'm going to be on there as well, either today or tomorrow leading up to the event to talk about it. So certainly hope to see everybody come out to the meeting. What kind of like you do it every single, it's the second Wednesday of the month that you do your meetings, and
correct.
is it free to the public or is there a fee? Okay.
No, there's no fee. And so what we do is we have a lot of snacks that are out on a table. So you're going to enjoy the goodies. There's a box on the table that by the snacks, and there's also a big literature table that I print articles about near-death experiences and other good information out on this table, and you can take whatever you want to. And so there's a donation box on the table, and then when we're in our actual event, we pass a donation box around. If you want to put something into it, we'd sure appreciate it, because of course we pay expenses. But if you can't and you don't have anything, then don't put it in it and just wait until the next time you come. So it's not something like we're watching to see if anybody puts in whatever. I'm not like that. This is not about money. It's about instead giving the purpose that I'm supposed to do with my life out to people. And that information I think is helpful. And so therefore I'm going to continue it even if I don't get your dollars donated.
I am so looking forward to actually putting my arms around you and giving you a big hug. You and I have been connected now for a couple years, but we haven't met in person. And we have so many mutual friends with Barbara Urbanus and also our friend Pamela Osley. We have all kinds of mutual. Nancy Newcomer, she's another one. Everybody raves about you. Everybody's like, oh, Barbara's amazing. So
everybody raves about you too, dear. So we're in the same boat.
Oh, go on. Tell me more.
You are so cute and you're so lovable. That's for sure.
Well, I am certainly looking forward to being part of this. And my hope, honestly, because, as you well know, it's like when you're creative and you have, like, I have this podcast and, not exactly, it doesn't make a lot of money yet, I'll say. And the book, you don't set out to, every author hopes that it's a New York Times bestseller, but it's a very teeny tiny portion of the audience that ever rises to that level. That's right. Truly, my intent for the Next Room book was just to get the messages out about love and about what is waiting for us, and that there is no shame or blame or punishment, that it is just plugging back in to this universal, fabulous love, many universes, multi-universes. And so it's all about the love. And that's the messages that my mother was sharing with me. So it'll be fun for me to be able to have an audience of people that are curious, that want to know more. And honestly, my intention with this is that at the end of the night, you look at me and say, I cannot believe how much money we raised tonight.
Oh, well, that'll help us in the future to keep moving forward. And that's what I really care about. And, I just really think the Gathering at the Doorway book and your book are going to be a big hit. I really do feel that people are just going to really love having those there. And whenever we've had speakers that have had books, it has been a good sale. We just hope that post-COVID, since we've only been doing a couple months since COVID, has kind of slimmed down a little bit, we hope enough people are there to do the book sales, but we can't control that. What you're
No,
doing the advertising, and so you're doing a great job with that.
yeah.
Yay.
Well, you really can't control that. And that's fine,
No,
because I always say whoever is meant to hear the message
right.
will be there. Whoever
Yes.
needs to hear it, who needs to have that connection or meet another like-minded individual. And I personally know I've got a lot of friends up there still because I just absolutely love Santa Barbara, and I have a lot of dear friends up there. So I've already like enlisted every single person I know, like, you're coming,
Yay.
right? You're going to come,
Yay.
right? I need a
Good.
friendly room. I want to, I don't want to sit there and just talk to myself.
Oh,
So it
good.
should be a great event. So once again, it's this Wednesday, September 14th, 2022. I'm the guest speaker at IANDS Santa Barbara at the Carpolis Museum. It's right downtown, really good location. And like Barbara said, there's fabulous little restaurants everywhere within walking distance. So turn it into a fun little evening where you come down, have a bite to eat, and then come to a free meeting about near-death experiences and about what I've done, which is kind of channel this book with my mother, about messages from the other side, beyond the veil in the next room.
That's good.
So thank you so much. Thank you to Camille Dan for shipping Gathering at the Doorway to Barbara so that we can sell this anthology of signs, visits, and messages from the afterlife. Wonderful people are involved in this book. It's like 40 little mini stories are in here, and everyone has a different connection to their loved one in the afterlife. So this book itself is just really a gift. And she did this really just to give back. And that's what's so beautiful about Camille and this project. As a matter of fact, just about a month ago, she was at the big Helping Parents Heal conference, and she did the same thing, took the books, sold the books, turned around and handed all the money back to that organization that helps parents that have lost a child. And it's
Wow.
just a phenomenal organization. And they do such beautiful work at Helping Parents Heal. So Gathering at the Doorway will be available for purchase, as well as my book, The Next Room. And I hope to see you there. I really do. Barbara, a few minutes left. When you had your NDE and you had your experience and you're on the ceiling, you're literally watching them work on your body. How did you feel? Did you have any fear?
None
None.
whatsoever. It literally, the panic was all left below when I left my body. I felt like I looked down immediately after I got up there and I said, if I'm up here and that guy is calling code blue, I think I just died. And right immediately, I felt this presence, and it just felt like I was wrapped in the most warm, beautiful blanket of love and acceptance. It was just awesome. I had not an ounce of fear, but the one thing that I really motivated me was that I was worried about my children's safety with the situation that I was in. And I'm happy to say that I got away from that person and safely, and my children were safe. And then a few years later, I met and married a wonderful 7-foot tall guy from Santa Barbara who was an ex-basketball player in the NBA. And he is the gentlest, sweetest guy to my children, his children, and our little baby that we had together, who's now 28 years old. So we have a lovely life. And I found, I think the other side was putting that near-death experience into my life at that time to get me away safely and to show me that I needed to get away, because I had been knowing that I needed to get away, but I was really scared of the person I was married to. So yeah, I
Wow.
think that they plant things in our lives. And I think that we're here to grow from all of the experiences, both positive and negative, that we have in our lives, to grow our soul and make us even more whole than we were before we went through that experience. So that's what I feel. And I love, even I don't even hold any negatives against my ex-husband, who was like that. I know that I was supposed to experience that, and I'm happy that I was brave enough to get away and that they intervened, and the whole thing turned out okay. So yeah,
Mm. You
everybody needs to
are,
remember that. Yeah,
yeah, that's beautiful.
it
Thank you
turns
for
out
that.
okay. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for that. And it was great because it was a two-part question and you just rolled right into the second part. And I love that lesson that you feel that you gained from such a crazy experience where you literally almost died. Well, you did die.
Yeah, yeah,
and watched it and then came back. Um,
yes.
Barbara Bartolome. She is my guest today. IANDS Santa Barbara. IANDS is, I'll put the link to the national organization on the show information page. I'll also put a link to Barbara has a wonderful YouTube um, uh, video. It was when you were interviewed about your NDE, and it's
Yes.
really great. Like, so when anybody's like, oh, Barbara, and I'm like, yeah, watch this and then talk to me about this woman. So I'll put that link in there as well. And then, of course, the gathering in the next room and all of that will be up on all of the promo pieces. So I hope to see you if you're anywhere near Santa Barbara, California this Wednesday. Please come by and say hello. And thank you so much, Barbara, for being part of just a wonderful community of trying to expand our consciousness and our understanding of what comes next in the next room.
Thank you, Jane, and I can't wait to hug you. See
Yay.
you soon.
You've been listening to The Next Room. It is where death is dinner conversation. And that is basically what I feel. I just feel like we need to, kind of just open up and talk about all of it, whatever it is, whether it is a conversation about the afterlife, whether it is near-death experiences, whether it's getting your will and trust together, hospice care, right to die issues, green burial, any of it, all of it. It's really quite lovely because it is a big part of life is death. There's birth, and then there's the fun stuff in between, and then there's the death, and it's all big, beautiful experience. And so it's time to really open up and talk about it. And that's what this show is all about. So thank you, thank you, thank you to all of you that listen every week and that download the shows. I really appreciate it. And I will be back with another guest in a couple of weeks that I know you're going to enjoy. Holly Duckworth is going to be with me. And if you're wondering who she is, just Google Holly Duckworth. You're going to be in for a huge treat in a couple of weeks when Holly joins me on The Next Room. Thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon.